with us today is Stevie Deal. She's got a lot of really cool stuff going on, and there is really fascinating. Hi, Stevie. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure. If we've got your full bio and all the dirty details, all the happy stuff, and the links and everything in the below. For the folks that are just listening or just watching real quick, can you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself before we get into the questions and finding out more in deep stuff about who you are?
All right. So, hi, I'm Stevie. I call myself the sword wielding, page turning, fetish bookworm. My area of focus is the moon and Moonolgy, and I call myself a bone witch because it's like a green witch, but just trees and stones, plants.
Okay.
Yeah, plants, I want to keep them alive, but they do not want to stay alive for me.
I have the same problem. Thank you. Yeah, I have the exact same problem. It's not that I don't try, but the plants that I ignore do best. The kind I plant out in the yard and let nature take care of, those are the only ones that actually live for me. So we've got a standard icebreaker that we roll through just because it's interesting to see where everybody comes from with it. So what is your favorite incense and what do you use it for?
My favorite incense is anyone you can light on fire.
Fire.
90% of it is, can I burn it? And can I make this spiritual?
Right on. Because we all need this nice haze.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm totally there with you. I love the smell of incense. And I have so many bags. I have no idea what I've got. Yeah. The labels wear off and yeah. So you just like creating an atmosphere. That's your favorite part about incense? It helps you create an atmosphere?
Yeah.
Or
it helps create that atmosphere and kind of gets you in that mood. Like when you do something ritualistically all the time, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm getting into the thing.
Perfect. And that's a really good thing to think about when we're building our practices is what kind of triggers we can use to throw ourselves into that headspace the quickest. Because it's those wonderful things like smell, repetitious action, and mindsets that put us into that spiritual connection. So absolutely. Tell me a little bit about how you put that. Now you've got your incense lit. What are you doing? How do you practice? What do you do? Tell me a little bit about how you manifest today. And then after that, I got questions about how you got here. So please, how do you do this now?
So I, about a year ago, got certified as a moonologist. I had read a book by Yasmin Boland about moonology and astrology. I had kind of always been into astrology, but didn't know anything outside of the I'm a Gemini. Right. So I fell in that deep dive, and I'm so much more than just a Gemini. So I do a lot of health coaching too. So it was a lot of goal setting. So for me, doing it with the cycle of the moon really made a whole lot more sense and set that structure up to set a goal, like kind of forgive, make a void for the universe to fill, and go through the different areas of your life and what you're going to work on. What I do is at the new moon is when I set those goals. So like new moon intentions, wishes, goals. And the thing is that you don't just set a goal. So it's not like, all right, I want a red car. You have to create action steps too of like, how am I going to get a red car? And then at the full moon, doing a releasing ceremony that is forgiving, releasing, anything like that, because something that's been repeated to me over and over again in my life is the universe will always fill a void. So you have to make that space for something new to go in.
Absolutely. And I got to say, I love the repetition to how you're approaching it and how cyclical you're approaching it. That is amazing because it's those rituals themselves that become rituals that send us into ritual. And I mean, I really love that and the intention throughout the entire cycle. With the group that I work with, our worship is based on the harvest cycle. And so it's kind of similar, but I love the shorter because we're based on the year. You're based on a month. A month you can get a lot more done and maybe sometimes not as much done, but you can have a lot better visual acuity on your progress. And I love that idea. You read the book. How did you become pagan? How did you find paganism?
When I was in high school, I read Pandora by Anne Rice, and I fell in love with how they like describe all of the gods and like all of them in that book. And then I was really sad because at the time I had a friend that I was in high school with, had been going to her dad's church, and like decided my parents are not spiritual or anything, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna be Christian now. And then I was sad because I was like, this God sounds really awesome. Like I can't do anything with it because it's not okay. And then like I just kept kind of like getting that nudge of like, hey, try this out. Hey, try this out. And so finally I like started reading, like, this makes a lot more sense to like feel tied to the earth and drawn to the earth than some of the other things that I was reading that was all like judgy, I guess. Like we like everyone. And the community I was in, it was not very like, love wasn't the focus.
Right. Exclusivity can be the focus in that kind of a thing where, well, we're better than them because this is what we believe and they must be condemned. And that makes them lower than us. So we feel better now. At least that's a cycle I've noticed within those structures. Did you start out after you read the book and you started to identify? How did you incorporate that into your life as time moved on?
So I'm bookworm, if you couldn't tell from the bookworm part. So I just started reading a lot of books, and at the time, like Wicca was a big thing in the high school scene. So I was reading a lot of books and like maybe dabbling, but not doing a whole lot because it seemed like too much ritual for me.
Okay.
So
yeah. I get that.
It's probably only been the last couple years that I read a book called The Green Witch, and finally like something clicked. And I was like, okay, like this makes more sense to work with like the cycles of the earth and the moon. And like this year I've also been working on like a woman's cycle and finding all of that. So finding like the circle that repeats over and over again versus like having to do like, all right, you want to do this spell, so you're going to get all of these things together and do all the thing. And I don't have the attention span for that.
I understand. And giving yourself a full cycle of anything, no matter what you tie it to, is very freeing. I mean, it adds a deadline, but it doesn't, because there's also the repetition. You just start over and keep trying. And so that's way cool. That is way cool. So what made you transition so you found the book? Was the book recommended, or how did you come across it? And can you tell me a little bit about the book and the author, trying to get more information out to folks?
So one of the other people that I used to work with had gotten into both of these things. And so we had both read the Moonolgy book, and she had like this cool little planner that actually sells out every year. So I couldn't get it that year. So I would like copy all of her pages. And then she's like, oh, I got this other book too. And The Green Witch is by, I'm going to hopefully not brutalize her name, Erin Murphy Hiscock. And a lot of it is just like stones, trees, what they do. I skipped over the whole back part where it gives you all the recipes. But it talks a lot about like working with the environment, taking care of the environment, like really being in tune with nature. And to me, it made more sense. Like I was a Disney kid, like Pocahontas. We were all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends.
Right. And I totally, for myself, I grew up very focused on the native beliefs. So yeah, I understand bringing that in, and Disney managed to really convey that well, and that interconnectedness. And that's one of the things that I'm a huge fan of theirs, is the actual recognition of that connection and that message. Other messages, that one's good. That one's good. Tell me about the environment around you as you accept your path. So you kind of started out, you went into a phase where you were drawn into the Christianity, and you took that turn in high school and you started exploring more within the pagan path and the nature connectedness. Were you dealing with any kind of outside pressures? You said it was kind of, what was it? It was in high school to look at Wicca, or?
Well, yeah. So I hung out with the goth kids, so it was totally in to yeah. I would say like we probably were the only 10 people looking into it because we were the only 10 people that talked to each other. It just felt like everyone.
I get that. I get that. As a former band kid, you live in a very small community in high school. Have you run into any issues or pressures now that you're out of high school and you are practicing on your own, putting forth your own path? Are you running into pressures or blockades from outside forces, or are you any kind of resistance, or is everything moving forward at a nice smooth path?
For the most part, it's a nice smooth path. Every now and then I get those people who like for example, one of my aunts has absolutely no problem with it, but like when I send my Christmas list every year, she's not buying the witch books off my Amazon wish list, and that's fine. We all get along. We all have like mutual respect. I would say, and every now and then people pick up on it too, and they'll be like, "I think you're a witch," and I'll be like, "Oh, I am," and they're like, "What? Tell me more." And I was like, so were you calling me that to be mean? Like, wait, let's back up a little.
Did that not go the way that you wanted it to? How do you find and connect to other pagans? How do you find other folks out there now that are practicing Moonology, or have you connected with other people that are interested in learning about it from you, or what's going on with that? Are you building a Moonology community?
So it's actually a little bit of both. I am a firm believer in that when you are walking your true path, that the right people will pop up. So I had never actually anticipated ever guiding anyone or teaching them. And like I'll get messages from people on Facebook because I'm a little bit more free now with what I share. So it's fairly obvious. So people will send me a message, ask me questions like, we have a full moon coming up at the end of this week or new moon. And I guarantee that I will have at least 4 messages from people like, okay, this is what I plan to do. What do you think?
Well, that's awesome, though. That's a wonderful thing to do for the community, because a lot of people, you get started and you need reassurance. Not everybody is able to go, well, this is what I think I'm doing. I'm pretty sure I'm doing it right. It depends on the area for me, whether I'm able to do that. So absolutely. And that's a wonderful thing to be able to provide to the community. On Moonology, are there any problems in translation and explaining it to people? Are there any sticking points that people kind of stumble over, or is it a fairly easy concept to digest?
It's a little of both. So it depends on where the person is, because most people know their sun sign and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then you get to people who might know their big 3, which is your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. So if you know, for example, like the next new moon is in Capricorn, it's pretty easy to kind of figure out what kind of energy that's going to be if you know anything about zodiac signs. It gets mm-hmm. a little bit more complex when you use your rising sign to figure out what house that rules for you. And then usually that's going to be the area of your life where maybe you want to set those goals or you want to focus. If you don't know your rising sign, you can use your sun sign too. It's just figuring out where they're at. Because I have a couple people that I work with who, like, for example, they're adopted. Like, they don't know what type they were born. And there are people out there who can apparently test to figure that out for you. I am not. I read that book and I'm like, I need to know how you do that, because that sounds like a whole lot of work.
That's kind of wacky. Oh my gosh. Is it like a big questionnaire, or?
They somehow use all of your major life events to figure out like where certain things happen over and over again to like test the exact time you were born.
Okay.
That's a little too much science for me.
Well, and see, that's funny because it's not too much for me. See, and I think this is really cool because I personally I have had a very shallow view, and I don't mean that from opinion wise. I mean that from depth knowledge or a shallow depth of information knowledge. There we go. Rather than calling myself shallow, that's probably better. But I've always had that very tertiary, because growing up, my path into the occult sciences was did numerology. So that was my focus. And I never really learned that much about astrology because back in the 70s and 80s, it was a weekly column on the Indiana Star across from the comic page. And it was really garbage because there was no actual science to it. It wasn't actually representative of anything. And so you just kind of learned to go, whatever, and you moved on. Well, now we actually have people that have come to the forefront, and we're able to actually share that knowledge a lot better without the reactions that people had back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And so it's a lot more accepting, and the information is a lot more widespread. For years, all I knew about myself was my sun sign, Gemini. It seems that we do that. And then eventually I learned my big three, and okay. And I learned that I was Gemini, Aquarius, Capricorn. Okay. And then recently I've actually gotten deeper into it and to actually understand how my house has fallen, all that thing. And so there's partially you'll know when you're urged in that direction. But it's always interesting to see because, like I said, it comes from a very shallow depth of knowledge to all this other stuff. And as a 55-year-old man, looking back at my life and seeing where each of those house things apply to me and understanding how cyclical life is and how Saturn loves to do all kinds of funky things to our lives every 7 years and every 28 years. And those are very important cycles. They're about development. They're about so many things. And learning those cycles and incorporating those just makes you even more powerfully aligned with yourself, to me. And I'm personally very focused on alignment at this point in my life, because I've been out of alignment for way too long. And now I'm starting to get in alignment. It's like, oh, wait, this is amazing. You mean I could have felt this way the whole time? Oh, boy. No, I'm not. Yeah, let's stay like this. Tell me about the local community there. You're in Indianapolis?
Indianapolis, like Beach Grove, Wanamaker area.
Okay. So Southeast. All right. So what is the local community like in Indianapolis? I've been out of the city for a little bit, so I'm not really in touch with a whole lot that's going on anymore. So hiding out down here in the woods. Is it easy to meet people? Are there places you can go to meet people steadily, or how's it working now? How do people meet people?
So a lot of it is on the internet. There's a couple local groups that host local meetups where you can go and meet people. We also, Beach Grove, I want to say a little over a year ago, their main street got a store called the Local Radish. And so like the owner is super knowledgeable and there's always people in there. I teach a couple classes there. They host all kinds of classes.
Very cool. Very cool. The local stores have always been a backbone of Indianapolis. And it really is a wonderful way to have to meet folks. And the South Side is really, really good at finding good shops and homes for good shops. And it's been going on for years. There's probably 6 or 7 that I know of on the South Side of Indy. And that's just a wonderful environment. You wouldn't think that Indianapolis in the middle of the Bible Belt would have quite the pagan population and or the openness that's there. And it's really kind of cool.
We're like the like part of Indiana that's like different from all the rest of them.
At least a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. I wanted to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying. I'm really enjoying doing these interviews. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, please go to GOTG Live and you can fill out a form there and send it to us to say what kind of stuff you want to talk about. And there's a process and we'll set up an appointment. We'll do a screening interview on the video. Then we'll do a full-length one where we just kind of sit and talk, have a conversation like this for an hour, hour and a half. and then I'll go do this. So if you'd like to be on, please send us a message, leave a comment below, share, like, do all the things, help us get engagement, help us spread the word, so other folks can enjoy this. Kind of think this is important for folks to see. And like I said, if you'd like to be a part of it, please feel free to send us a message. You can do so on Facebook as well as at Grove of the Gods. Find us there. I'm Morgan Hornman. Thank you very much for watching. May the Lord and Lady be ever in your hearts. Praise be to Pan, and have an amazing day. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Do you consider yourself a solitary, or do you consider yourself a person with a group that you're working with that's loosely bonded? How do you approach that dynamic? How do you connect magically with other folks?
I am solitary. I don't normally do any kind of rituals with other people. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. It's just, we all do our own things for the most part. But I do have, like, if someone reaches out and asks me questions, I'm going to give them an answer. If I don't know, I will try to find them a book to be like, okay, here you go. Or I'll send resources through just Google searching and be like, okay, here you go. I don't know much about this, but like, this could help you.
Right on. And that really, thank you for doing that for folks. That's an important thing for people to have access to, is that feedback and that guidance. And so thank you for doing that. It's an important thing in communities, because we all kind of have to pay it forward, because we end up getting it because resources are limited. Access to those resources are even more limited. And so word of mouth and finding a trustworthy source that is going through a similar journey is one of the things that we're doing these interviews for, is so that people can find each other and help each other with that. What are you the most passionate about with your practice or your life period? Is there something that you're especially focused on? Or is it just mainly on the Moonolgy, or are there other things to bring in?
It is mostly the Moonolgy. Earlier this year, I do like 30 minutes a day where I read some kind of like nonfiction book. Sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's historical. I call them book holes. And I got into this book hole about like menstruation and women's cycles, and realizing like that it's not just when you bleed, that there's so many things that, like, for example, ladies, if you're menstruating, a nap is an appropriate workout for that part of your cycle. Like, some of us are going to need that rest, and that is okay to skip your workout and take that nap. And that was like a life-changing piece of advice for me. But as I started tracking that, and seeing like how that also goes in a 28-day cycle-ish, like the moon, that there are pieces where like part of your cycle, you want to be more social and go out and meet people. And like part of your cycle, you don't want to have anything to do with anyone else. And there's totally normal. And like just kind of balancing that over and over again, and seeing like everything runs in this circle, and we're all trying to teach that it's like this linear line, and that's not how life works.
Not at all. Not at all. And I think that's amazing, because I certainly never thought about breaking it down on that approach to the cycle. Looking at how, because you've got timing with ovulation, you've got timing with different flows, you have different hormones that are being introduced into the body in specific times. So you've got different mental states going on, you've got different pressures within your body aggravating you. And I mean, there's just a lot going on for you to process. And having that approach, I would imagine, would be super helpful to helping you understand yourself and getting in better touch with yourself. Personally, I'm a anti self-gaslighting advocate, because we gaslight ourselves constantly. And one of the most important ways we gaslight ourselves is by disconnecting ourselves from our bodies and reestablishing that connection and understanding. Because the more we understand and listen to ourselves, the more we can understand the world around us more intuitively. Because then it's a whole being interpretation. And you can go, oh, my tummy's going, I don't like that. And all of the things, in learning yourself and getting in touch with yourself. And I think that is an amazing boon for people to be able to have access to and understand that within themselves. And it just, there's just a lot. And especially, I'm a person that's all about processes and cycles. So it's like, oh, repeatable, easy. It's what I do for a living. Do you have a magical moment where it was, this is real in front of my eyes right now, that you would like to share?
So one just happened to me. And like, so it happened 3 times. And I've always, you know, like if you see something out of place 3 times, it's probably the universe kind of like not going to be like, hey, did you see this? December 3rd was my last day at the job I had worked at for 17 years of my life. My first job ever. I started a new job, and it's been a little like, you know, interesting adjustment. Like you don't really realize how like much of routines and cycles you have of 17 years. But the first time it happened, and I had to notice because I went back and took a picture of it because it was super weird, and then I completely forgot about it. But I had been driving home, and like I look up, and there are just like a swarm of blackbirds just like tornadoing through the sky. And I was like, well, that's weird. So like I was stopped at a red light. I took a picture, didn't think anything else about it. A couple days later, different spot, swarm of blackbirds. Okay. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, that's weird. That's happened twice. Yesterday, driving on a third separate location, blackbirds everywhere. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna look up what this means because like this is not.
Yeah. So are there any deities, specific deities you work with, or are you just more nature spirit oriented?
I kind of just go with the flow. When I got started, I actually minored in Greek mythology. So it was a lot of like Persephone and Artemis and Athena. And then for a while, I was kind of dancing around, sometimes the Morgan. And then last year, I got heavily into Norse mythology, off of another book that's actually a fiction-based book. But they were training to be Valkyrie in this book. So I got like super into Valkyrie, and I was like, well, if you're going to be a Valkyrie, you should probably know their gods. And again, weird how things work. So I got into like this Norse mythology. All of my workouts went from like going to the gym, running, working out to I have a sword, I have a mace, I have axes. Like if you see me working out in the backyard, it probably looks like I'm trying to murder a tree. The tree's okay. They're all safe. I promise. But ended up that I actually now work at an axe throwing facility that like is also full of a bunch of other Vikings that just like
That's
onto
awesome.
that Norse mythology. I'm like, hey guys, I feel like I manifested you.
That's amazing. It is really kind of wild how we get led down these paths and into these rabbit holes where we find ourselves connected on so many different levels when we are able to finally look up and realize what we've done to ourselves. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, what did I manifest? Holy cow.
Or it's like life nudged you a little and you took that little step, and then it's like, okay, we're going to nudge you more, and suddenly you're looking back like, how did I get over here?
Right. Yeah, blackbirds. It sounds like you're going to have an interesting conversation. Because to me, blackbirds are Hecate, Morrigan,
Odin.
kind of that line. Yeah, there's a lot of vision. There's a lot of very interesting future for you. How do you see your relationship with the gods? Do you feel they affect your daily life? Or is it, what is your relationship? Do you have them talking in your ear constantly, or are they somebody that visits occasionally?
They're usually just somebody that visits occasionally. Usually, like for a while last year, there were 2 crows that hung out every morning in front of my shop, and just be like, hey guys, like, are you here for the Morgan or Odin today? Like, who are you?
Right.
And I'm usually the first person there, so I'm like, I'm just making sure I get in okay.
Right on. Yeah. Saying that and then talking about those flocks of blackbirds. Yeah. Those are huge calling cards. Do you like leave offerings to the birds, or do you just go through your altars, or how do you do any kind of stuff like that? Or
I use a lot of offerings. We live on like 9 acres. So usually like if I'm doing something, I'll take out like a piece of an apple or some nuts and just put them out there for whoever wants them. I'm not picky. And then like, I'm not going to lie, hopefully this is not illegal, but I've seen the TikTok videos about how you get crows to bring you presents, and I totally try to feed them because I want them to just follow me around and bring me presents.
And see, I'm not going to hate on you, because myself, when we moved down here, one of the very first things I did was go out and buy a bag of peanuts to feed to the crows. And it wasn't to have them bring presents, but it's to establish a presence on the land, because that's a oracle I want here. And I have a nice, but the funny thing is that they really pretty much ignored them. And what I got were blue jays and woodpeckers. And so then I started putting up bird feeders, and I ended up with 6 bird feeder stations that I go through about 150 pounds of bird feed every week and a half or 2 weeks. But it was because I was trying to feed crows. And they do come. They don't eat any of the bird feed I have. And they will go after, if I put corn out in the front yard, they'll go after it, but they don't go near any of the feeders back in the woods or anything. They'll perch up in my trees, but they won't go down on the ground in the woods, which I find very interesting. But knowing what I have in my woods, not entirely. I have lots of things in my woods. It's very interesting. I hope you're able to make it down here one of these days. I love sharing our home with folks and giving them the ability to connect with whoever they find back there, and the shrines we've already got and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm super excited. Tell me about how you view how the world works. I asked somebody else this question, and they said it's a hologram. I don't know if you need to be that deep or if you feel that deep. I don't. Do you feel that we're here to succeed a mission, or we choose those missions before we get here, or we make that decision once we get here?
I feel like the world is circular, but not necessarily like a perfect circle. So like you might start in the center and you spiral out. So even though you're at the same point, you might be higher up or lower. I feel like there are infinite possibilities. It just like, for example, like we have a Mercury retrograde coming up, and a lot of people like if you don't know anything about astrology, you're like, oh, that's bad. Technology's going to be bad. Everything's going to be awful. That's not really what it is. It really asks you to focus on like RE words, like that retrograde. So reflect, review, renew. There's probably a lesson you need to revisit. And if you haven't learned it yet, you're going to repeat it the next Mercury retrograde.
Right. And as a Gemini, I hate doing the same thing twice. Just saying. and Mercury retrogrades hit me different than a lot of folks. And I think it really has to do with what you're talking about right there, because I'm already in the reflect and refract moment, because I'm constantly reflecting and looking to try and improve. And so I'm always looking for ways to end cycles and not have to go through that same pain again.
Well, and I will tell you, because I'm also a Gemini, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, like Mercury's your ruling planet and that hurts you hard. Most Geminis, like across the board, so like my kid is one, I somehow am friends with mostly Gemini, we thrive in chaos. So when people are like, oh, it's retrograde, it's bad, we're like, no, it's retrograde, we're about to have a party.
Right? We're going to get so much done. There's so much communicating going on. Some of it may fail, but it's going to be a lot of communication.
And like, oh, if that communication goes bad, we don't care. We're just the sign of communication. We're just like, all right, everybody share your feelings. And if this goes bad, we're going to be fine in that chaos too. We are
exactly
trickster side. Like it is hilarious to get a whole bunch of us together, because it's going to be a good time.
It really is. And see, I totally identify with that. A lot of people associate me with chaos. But for me, it's not, it's about embracing the freak, all the things going on. It's embracing it and diving in and just kind of loving on it, but to put it into order.
Yeah.
Because absolutely, the energy is amazing, but my ultimate goal, diving into chaos and surfing all over it, is to actually kind of pull it into a straight road so we can put the pieces away. We can actually make that road work and have success that way. But absolutely, I have noticed that about Geminis. That is one of our things. And as you shake your head, I go, that's wonderful seeing that confirmed by another Gemini, because we love the chaos, but we love putting the chaos into order.
We are the leader of the chaos.
Right. We're at the top of the swirl, baby. So, and for me as a Gemini Aquarius, there's a lot of tornado going on.
I'm a Leo rising, so it's like I'm that fire tornado. Like my air sign just makes that fire go so much higher. Like we're gonna explode some stuff, we're gonna burn some stuff. Everybody's having a good time.
Exactly. It's time to watch the fire party. Yeah, absolutely. What impact do you want to make on the world? What is your goal? What is your end goal with your current practice? Do you have an end goal, or is it just you're working the cycles and figuring out each new cycle what needs to be worked on next?
So for me, it took a while of like all of these random things that seem random to kind of be pieced together. I work in the health and wellness space. I do mostly weight loss coaching, but some fitness instruction. I teach group fitness classes. I've always been pagan, and then starting to get tied in with the moon in that phase, and then moving into this health space where I'm working with women and sharing like all of these things that no one knew, because I really feel like someone should have told us this before now. Like I'm 33 years old. I should have had a little bit more understanding of how my body works. So I always my goal is always to kind of be like the health hub of my community. Now it's like, I want to teach people how to look in themselves, because the thing is that all diets are going to work, but they're not all going to work for every person. And when you finally realize like what works for you, what doesn't work for you, how to know, it's going to be so much easier to reach those goals and become in balance with not just like your health and wellness goals, but your life, when everything is all working together and you're like, okay, this works for me, this might not work for you, and figuring that out for yourself.
That's also in line with the current shift that we're going through, where into Aquarius, where we embrace the individual as a part of the collective, not embrace the collective and diminish the individual, and setting ourselves out as distinct members of the same thing and completely alike, but distinct and different, and approaching everything differently is the push that our society is going through energetically through the healers and the magicians and the spiritual people. And that seems to be more the emphasis in the direction we're going, is that self-attunement and walking away from the herd, not necessarily the tribe, but finally distinguishing ourselves and working on distinguishing ourselves as not herd animals, and trying to move away from that psychologically. At least that's my perspective on it. That it's very much an emphasis of a lot of the work I'm doing right now is on encouraging that individuality and the acceptance of self, and going, you don't have to do it like me. You don't have to do it like you. Well, you need to do it like you. You don't need to do it like me. I got ideas on how I did me, and I'm happy to share them, but don't do me. Do you? I'm sure someone will take an offense at that whole exchange. What piece of wisdom would you share with somebody new to their path? Someone who's been on this path for a couple months, 6 months? What would you needed to have heard the most when you were in that phase?
To keep researching, keep studying, and to find what works for you. Because like when I first started, I thought it was all just like all of these spells. You have to have all of these pieces of equipment. You have to buy all of these things. And like for me now, it's all just intention. Like I tell people this all the time. Like if you have a cheeseburger and the right intentions, you can cleanse your whole house. Like the sage is not the important piece of that entire thing.
See, and you said that, and I immediately went to how that would work.
Just gonna wave your hamburger around, put the right intentions out there. I mean, it steams your man.
Absolutely. I mean, I will totally admit that within the last month and a half or so, I walked through my house with incense going, I'm the witch, get out, bitch. I'm the witch, get out. So yeah.
You can't really do it
Give
wrong.
me a pan. It works. We were talking about books, and you found Moonology through a book. What books would you recommend folks to read? Tell me about the Moonology book a little bit so that you can direct people towards that. Are there other books on Moonology? Is it a growing field? And other books that maybe folks would find interesting that you feel were very influential on you?
So for like Moonology, I've just read the one by Yasmin Boland, but I've read a bunch of astrology books. Shawnee Nicholas, I think, is one of them. That one is one that you really want to go through, print off your birth chart. Like, don't get the one that they interpret for you. Just get the one that tells you where all your houses are, where all of your planets are. And she goes you through, it's kind of like one of those pick your own books. You won't actually read the book from cover to cover, but you'll go through and be like, okay, this is where my sun is. It'll tell you about that. And she goes through in depth all of these things to look at. I did that with Yasmin Boland's astrology book too. It's really eye-opening to go through for yourself, because I can do birth charts for people, but for me, like, if I know them, it's a little bit easier. So I'm like, all right, I see these words repeating. Like when I do mind chart, a lot of the same words repeat, which is chaos and rebellion, which is really funny because, as we talked, the Gemini and the chaos. But I also, I have a business called Rebel Nutrition, which loosely based on Star Wars, but I've always been that kind of rebel kid, the goth kid, the witch kid, the I'm not going to do what you tell me I'm going to do type of kid. So like, as I'm reading this and like over and over again, these words pop up, I'm like, this totally makes sense. You don't do anything.
We may need to compare charts. We may need to compare charts, because one of my finally learning about how to read my own chart and at least read through the definitions that other people gave me and kind of read how it boiled everything down. Yeah, we need to boil down, because I found some interesting things about myself that really, it really is my life. And it will be interesting to see just how we match on houses.
And I will tell you, there are a couple different house systems, which is funny because every book I've ever read tells me like, hey, we use whole house systems, but there are other ones. I have never found anyone else that uses these other systems. But like, if I use any app on my phone, it defaults to them. And then I'm like, why are my houses wrong? I'm like, well, if no one else uses this, why do you even have them?
I think that partially comes down to the motivation of the app developer. Do they love astrology or do they love money? So are you a writer? Do you do any writing that you publish, or do you have a website or anything we could look at?
So I am a writer, although that is a whole other different genre of books that I haven't got published yet. But those are going to be like spicy romance, not your grandma's romance books. One of them is ready for editing. The other one, I swear I'm going to finish, but they fell in love and I was bored with it after that. And I'm gonna finish it. It's just like, yeah, there's no more drama. But then, yeah, so I also have a small online community that is growing with Magnetic Moon Planning on Facebook. I share astrology stuff on my Instagram account too. It's just Stevie_the_girl. And then usually once a month I teach classes at the local Radish. So we have one coming up December 22nd, and then we don't have the 2023 dates yet.
Do you follow or recommend any particular pagan or spirituality influencers or channels? Do you have a favorite YouTube person you watch? Anybody on Instagram?
So I full on chaos mode. We'll just get on whatever platform I'm on and see what pops up. The universe will give me the message I need to hear.
You know, I do the exact same thing. I share a lot of memes. And yeah, I don't want to go into it. But I really rely on the algorithm entirely. The algorithm will show me what I need to see.
Yep.
And that for me is a part of being aligned and trusting my intuition that I will get what I need to get. And it's amazing the things that show up in my feed that I have no idea. Yeah, that's what I need to share. I share a lot of inspirational stuff and a lot of self-help stuff, as well as pagan stuff, through various pages I've got. And it's about allowing the universe to give me what it thinks I need to know. That doesn't mean I don't go out and find out more information, but I recognize what's put in front of me. So yeah, letting the universe do what it wants to you ends up being the easiest path.
Yeah.
By far.
If you ignore the little nudge, you're going to get a big slap in the face, and that's not fun at all.
Exactly. Save yourself that escalation. Trust me on this. Take it from an old man. Save the escalation. Do you have any upcoming projects that you'd like to talk about? Anything on the horizon? Stuff you'd like to share?
I am working on getting a monthly moon class for the new moon that is virtual, because I have a ton of people in my group that are not close to Indianapolis. And I'm like, oh, I really hate missing out on this. So I'm in the works of getting that set up where they can get their guide and have the new moon guidance for, hey, this is what it's doing, this is where it's hitting for you. And then giving them that option of, if you need a little bit more hands-on, we can schedule a one-on-one and do that together too.
We're kind of at the end. I've really enjoyed talking. This has been an amazing conversation. My last question for this time, because I hope to have you back, because I have a feeling there'll be more to talk about. And I'm enjoying talking. Was there anything that I missed? Was there anything that I didn't cover that you'd like to talk about? Because I want to make sure that we hear what you want to share with everybody, because that's really the whole point of this, is getting out our messages. So is there anything I didn't ask that I should have? And I'd love to hear about it.
The only thing, like, you did ask me what I was reading, and then we got sidetracked, which is funny because I had a friend buy me, I have them down here, The Altar Within by Juliet Diaz, and it's all about like finding like your internal spirituality and like reflecting on yourself and working through these things. And then in true Gemini ADHD fashion, someone mentioned that if you have 1,000 books, you are a library. So not only do I want to count them, I wanted to categorize them all into a master sheet by like fiction, nonfiction category all together. I'm like 100 and something books in, and I'm already bored. But I found a book that, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to make it. But like, it's funny because I didn't realize how long I'd had this book until I decided I was going to read it again, because I had read the book and then bought the workbook and went to start the workbook, and the workbook doesn't really make a lot of sense if you don't read the book while you do it. And I was like, well, I just read this and like whatever. So I found these was like I was doing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do these together. And it's called the Warrior Goddess workbook. And then there's a guide that goes with it, but it's all going through and like reading like the same thing as Juliet Diaz on, like looking within. The first time I read it was in 2015, and I put notes in it. And so like looking back and reading that and being like, oh man, like the first 3 parts of this book, I'm like, I have already been doing this. Like, I don't like working on the cycle within, like breaking away from caring like what other people are thinking and like changing your perspective. And even like looking at the one time they have you do there's like 2 words that go together, like I look within, I look without, or I blame others, or I blame myself type things, and seeing where I was in 2015 to like now, I'm like, I don't need to read this book. Apparently I read it once and got it. I just didn't realize it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Fantastic. It's wonderful looking back at our lives and realizing just how far we've come.
Yeah. 2015-year-old me is probably like back there going like, we need a high five. Girl, we did it.
Right. And I don't know where the theory originated, but I'm a firm believer that the things that we do today, the decisions we make, manifest within the next 3 years. And so 2015, that totally happened. You manifested that, and you were able to go back and validate that. That's wonderful. I think that's just absolutely spectacular, because those moments are so rare, and that's amazing that you got that. That's really exciting. So I'll stop blabbering, but I think it was really cool. Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed talking. This has been amazing. I hope to have you back at some point soon. Thank you so much. to all of our watchers, thank you so much for watching. May the Lord and Lady bless you and hold you in their hearts. I can't say anything right this weekend. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.